Well, Institute of Internal Auditors are having the India conference right now in Mumbai, and from the sidelines of the conference, I have all the key presenters right now with me to chat about all the important issues they have been speaking here about. Gentlemen, all of you, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Mauri-san, let me start with you. Let's try and understand from you how the international practices are in this area right now, and what kind of technological changes these international practices are actually happening, and what are the global trends you're watching or in the best practices side?
So clearly, internal auditors are being expected to help the management protect the organization in this day of age of global trend in using the robotics, artificial intelligence, and all the changes that are happening with internet coming into the basis of the day-to-day activities and the business activities. So internal auditors are expected to respond to the change in the management, help protect the organization, and provide the most value out of what we do. So clearly, we have a lot to catch up, and clearly, what we actually need to base on our internal audit practice is the global standard that we put forward through the IIS effort in help our profession globally.
Richard, talking of or taking the leaf out of what Mauri-san actually spoke about, do you see Indian companies also come up to the level of global best practices and standards now? And what are the shortfalls, and where do you think the challenges lie for Indian companies?
Well, I think Indian companies are experiencing some of the same risks and challenges that companies around the world are feeling. Clearly, in economies that are in a developing stage, there are certain risks that, of potentially fraud or mismanagement that you may not see in some other countries. But I think internal audit here is up to the challenge. From what I've seen in my travels here to India over the last few years, this is a profession that's growing and vibrant and is ready to take on the challenge of addressing the risks that Indian companies face.
You've been working in this area for decades now, and of course you've seen the evolution of corporate India as well, I'm sure. Do you see in the next coming years Indian companies also come up to the levels of how the global companies are operating in this area?
Yeah, I do, because I think in the global marketplace, the competition is driving everyone to improve operations. From what I've seen, and I see in America, American companies are often looking to Indian companies to supplement their workforce, to supplement some of their capability, and I think that's already, for me, a signal of economy here and the caliber of companies in India that is rising.
Mauri-san, how would you look at, or what would you tell Indian companies and many of the viewers also of our business channel on the challenges and risks which lie ahead and the areas they need to be careful about while adopting the best practices?
So Indian companies, as Richard said, has been really coming up with nicely with the learning curve, if you will. And I have actually been engaged with the Indian workforces in the past 2 decades, working with the local internal auditors, helping the headquarters to work. Clearly, one of the things that I do actually think that Indian auditors need to be mindful about is clear distinction between the accounting profession and the internal audit profession. It is two distinct professions. And internal audit does require different skill sets to actually help protect the organization and then provide value to the senior management and to the board audit committee. So that needs to be clearly understood. Competence needs to be up. I do understand that Indian auditors, the competence is actually quite high. So you have actually brighter side in actually working with that. So that's something that I would actually urge Indian internal auditors to step forward, look at the standard, really look at the certification like CIA to acquire and demonstrate their competency.
In fact, very interesting point which Mauri-san brought up was distinction between internal audit and accounting standards. And Bhaskar, you also represent a large corporate group. And of course, have you been associated with large corporates in your previous experience as well? Talk to us about how large corporate groups are also integrating best practices What are the kind of challenges they are taking? What stage of development things are over there?
Well, historically in India, internal auditing has evolved as an offshoot of the accounting profession. And there have been in MNCs, the culture was, it used to be used as a management development department. And in regulated industries, it's a specialized career kind of a job. And I think like wherever regulations specify very clearly, it is required to meet the highest standards. But as companies become increasingly global, it is extremely important for internal auditors in India to align to the global standards. And it is imperative that to become specialized and get the certified internal auditor profession. And in India also, like of late, we see increased stakeholder activism. So to that extent, like it has become extremely crucial for internal auditors to step up and really make sure the basics are in place, and so that they can really evolve into becoming a valued partner and cope up with the various business disruption, etc.
In fact, in the stock markets also recently we've seen how internal audit, the role of internal audit has come to fore. Of course, apart from the overall quality of books, but do you see evolution of, or how do you see the evolution of this as a meaningful input for companies to get better value as well going forward?
Like in India, there is a lot of improved kind of environment now. Say of late, say 3 years back, the new Companies Act came out with a clear provision of requiring a separate internal audit. Now, what it has still not done is to specify the standards which internal audit has to be done. So there is no standard on standards. So there are several standards which are existing, but the IIA position is that when we have a global standard, it is important to align to the global standard. Just like the way we have IFRS, Ind AS, just like the way, here also, like if we have the global internal auditing standards, it will be useful to align to that, so that it becomes global. Increasingly businesses are global, so to that extent I think it will be a good sign to align for a betterment of the governance situation.
Right. Devashish, talk to us about how the inputs from internal audit or the overall concept of high quality internal audit or global standard internal audit actually becomes a strategic input as well for corporates.
Sure. So if you think of it, as any corporate thinks about strategic decisions, mergers and acquisitions, hive-offs, setting up of new plants, big investments, fundamentally what are they doing? Any leadership is trying to take a decision on how effectively can they mitigate or sort of predict risks that might hit them. Now, if the internal audit profession equips itself with professionals who therefore bring that value to the businesses, if they're able to understand what are the key business value drivers, what are the interdependencies, what are factors beyond pure financial analysis? What if you had things like people aspects, cultural aspects? Those are things which today get missed out in key strategic decisions, and at least internal auditors don't have a role to play, because I don't think we've so far sort of taken the profession to that standard. But if we can elevate ourselves to that level, I do believe that the risk and internal audit professionals actually are ideally suited to be able to bring that strategic value to these decisions.
In fact, you're also at a senior management level. How do you see the engagement between internal audit as a subject and of course a part of the company by senior managements of large corporates? And do you see engagement needs to improve at a further level, or are you already witnessing signs that engagement is improving?
So I would say if I look at it a little bit more globally, I think there definitely are large corporations who engage internal audit very effectively in strategic decision making. India market, unfortunately, I think we are a little behind still. It is, like we heard earlier in the day, it is largely dependent, I think, on the profile of the chief audit executive. If the chief audit executive sort of draws that kind of confidence from the board and from leadership, I think the audit function automatically gets pulled in. Where they don't see that in the leadership, I think it's lacking. So unfortunate reality is that we also need to do a bit of profile change and a bit of sort of enhancement of the chief audit executives possibly for the senior leadership to start having that reliance factor and comfort factor that they will get truly value-added guidance and advice from internal audit if they were to be seen as business partners versus just assurance providers and watchdogs of the past.
Right. All right, gentlemen, all of you, thank you so much for your time. Have a great conference. I was really watching it. It was a full house. I'm sure the day 2 tomorrow would also be a great one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.